Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025, and I want to welcome you to the Pittsburgh Public Schools Agenda Review Meeting for Pittsburgh Public Schools and the Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit. As a reminder, based on our new policy, board members and the public have had access to the agenda for the required amount of time per the policy, as well as board members had an opportunity to ask questions and receive responses in advance to this meeting. All of those items are listed under item 1.03 in board docs and is available to the public. But we also want to extend time for additional questions if there are any from board members. So we will start with the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit agenda. Ms. Solek, are there any items that you need to pull from the agenda this month? All right. No agenda items being pulled. Are there any questions or comments or thoughts from board members on the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit agenda?
No question.
Hold on. I should probably be on the Zoom so I can see who's on there. All right. Seeing no questions, we will now move on to the education section of the agenda. Dr. McNeil, are there any items that need to be pulled from the education section?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. And the education section includes agenda items 5.01 through 8.05. Are there any questions or comments from board members that you would like to bring to the floor at this time?
No additional questions.
All right, seeing none, we will now move on to the business section of the agenda. Mr. Joseph, are there any items that need to be pulled from that section?
In all likelihood, we'll be pulling 12.03, but we'll wait until next week. We just want to verify some things, but in all likelihood, we'll be pulling that from the agenda next week.
All right. And then the business section of the agenda starts at item 10.01 and then moves through the rest of the agenda before up until we get to the new business items, which we will handle separately. Are there any questions, additional questions from board members on the business section? Director Yord.
Thank you, Director Walker. I just had a quick question on items 12.12 or 12.12, 12.14, 12.15, and 12.16. These are all various no-cost extensions on contracts, and I was just hoping to get clarity on why we need the no-cost extension. For some of them I was looking at, it seems like potentially the work's not started. I just wanted clarification.
Good evening, Mike McNamara, Chief Operations Officer. These contracts are on-call contracts, so we use them on an as-needed basis. And typically, if it's a $100,000 contract, if we do not use all of the $100,000 during that time period, we'll extend it so that we can use the rest of the money in the contract before we go to write a new contract for them.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Mr. McNamara?
What's that?
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Once these contracts are up and we've exhausted the funds in them, would these then go out to be recompeted publicly, or?
Yeah, just recently, for this year, we've put out an RFP for our next set of on-call consultants. So
Okay.
we've already got a group of on-call consultants, I believe went last month.
Okay.
And yes, we continue to put out RFPs so that we can meet with them, interview them, put them through a rubric, and give them opportunity to compete for the contracts.
Okay, thank you. That was it, Director Walker.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, I have like three, because I'm not good at submitting my questions ahead of time. 10.04 is an authorization to make a payment, and I was just curious, is that a normal thing that we do? I thought once we authorize a contract, we don't have to authorize payment, but I don't know if I've seen that before.
Ronald Jones, Chief Financial Officer. So items in addition to contracts are under consulting contracted services. So this is it's just pretty much verbiage, but this is a software item. So instead of drafting a contract, we issue a purchase order for that. So it's a purchase order and then we'll issue payment for that.
Got it. That makes sense. All right. And then 10.06, 10.09, 10.10, all have, at least on board docs, have contract terms that start prior to tonight. And so I'm just curious, like, is that work happening already? Why are we, like, why are the contract terms from 6 months ago? And maybe that's a mistake.
Oh, no, so in the case of 10.06 and 10.09, these are software licenses, and in a lot of cases, these have automatic renewal provisions if they're not canceled with 90 days notice from the end. These are services that we are currently using right now, but it was just a matter of these items weren't put in at the appropriate time. So we'll work on that and make sure that we're putting the items in prior to that. And in terms of the tiny house, this was a bid that was put out, and it was on the agenda last month, but it was pulled that time. But this is for a purchase, so this purchase has not been made yet. But it just wasn't updated to reflect the date from last month. But no purchases have been made for the tiny house until board approval is given.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, I only really ask because obviously there was a report posted talking about contract procurement and how, contract work is started before contracts are signed, and it just becomes a kind of a jumble. And so, yeah, we probably should clean that up a little. And then for 10.09, I'm just curious, I mean, it seems like Talking Points works really well, but we only do we only do a one-year contract, and why? Like, why wouldn't we do a slightly longer one if is there an advantage to that?
Mercedes Williams, Director of Communications and Stakeholder Engagement. We only do a one-year contract, but that's the allotment that Talking Points currently gives us. Because we originally started Talking Points with some supplemental funds, we sometimes don't know if we have or have it budgeted for Talking Points. So we just do a yearly contract every October or November.
Okay. Do we know if there would be like cost savings to do multi-year?
I could ask.
I mean, I'd be curious, especially since it seems to be something we're just going to keep doing. Cool. And then my last one is 12.03, which is one of those fun amendments. But this one's an expensive one, and it looks like it's our third one in a row. 12.06, I'm sorry, 12.06. So I'm just kind of curious about one, like, how do we control, like, how do we control for this kind of stuff? Like, we're talking about, one approval from the board 3 years ago, but then getting an amendment every year for $300K. Like, would we not do a new contract, like get new approval? Why the amendment instead of a brand-new contract?
Mike McNamara, Chief Operations Officer. This contract in particular is for environmental abatement work, and we use them on an emergency basis when there's abatement work that needs to be done in the schools. They do a really nice job, and we've built a really good relationship with them, so we want to continue to use them to get the work done, because it's really sensitive work, so we do try to use them for a few years. We do put them out every couple years for bid as a maintenance contract, but again, this is one of the companies that have been doing a really nice job for us, so we want to continue to use their services.
Is there a benefit to getting a new contract annually versus just jumping another year amendment onto the contract that was approved 2.5 years ago?
In this example, it's good to have contractors that understand the nuances of doing work for us. And also, when we do this work, we also have a consultant who oversees the work. So anytime there's an abatement work being done, it's a two-part process. We have a contractor who's doing the work, and then we have a consultant who's overseeing the work to make sure it's done for, under the Allegheny Health Department, constraints and things like that. So having a contractor that's familiar with the work that we do, our buildings, and how we work does provide some efficiencies for us, and also just makes the work smoother because, again, this is a type of contract that we call out Sunday night. We need some work done before Monday morning when kids get back to school. So having a good partner helps with that.
Okay. So it sounds like we treat this like as a retainer, like
I mean, it's an out, like, the contract's bid out on hourly rates and material prices, and they hold those rates, so they don't raise them, so they've been holding the same rates over these past years. So, so that's also a benefit to us.
Thank you. That is helpful. And then the last item for tonight is the new business item 17.01, which is the resolution to authorize the acceptance of the Future Ready Plan and all of the work that it entails. And so I will open up the floor for comments, questions from board members on that resolution. Oh, sorry, we will stop. Ms. Director Silk has a business question.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on the question I submitted about the placeholder item 12.03, which in the response I now somewhat better understand is related to borrowing to maintain district operations during the impasse. And now that that is over, there will be a reevaluation of that need, and the hold is still there. I was just hoping to hear a little bit more about that evaluation, possibly if this would be pulled from the agenda this month.
So previously, at the beginning of the section, I did state that it's in all likelihood going to be pulled. The evaluation is looking at the timing of when we receive the money in from the state, then projecting our cash flow until we get our next sum of money, being when we receive our earned income money and our real estate taxes, to see if there's still a need to borrow to bridge that the gap from when we have money from the state now and when we're going to get our next big sum of money, so to make sure we're not going to have a point where we are at a cash flow crunch. So that's the last evaluation. We've done some preliminary evaluation, and looks like we won't need it, but just waiting until next week.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you, Director Silk. And I know like larger school districts like Philadelphia do this annually. But I mean, they only have a $3 billion a year budget or something like that. Yeah, right. All right. So now the floor is open if there is discussion or questions or comments on agenda item 17.01. All right. Doesn't appear to be any questions or comments on that one, and unless your finger was getting ready. No, Director Talaferro?
Thank you, Director Walker. I did have just one question because it kind of was sitting with me after the conversation we had on Monday, and was just wondering if there could be some clarity. I know it was stated that there might not be funding to reopen Northview Heights School, and so I'm just wondering if that is a concern or an issue, how we would still move forward with closing the schools that are pending that school addition. So I was wondering if someone might be able to speak to that.
So all of the items in the Future Ready capital plan are factored into long-term projections via an increase in debt service. So in the implementation plan, there was a listing of by year the incremental change in capital borrowing that would be needed and debt service that would be needed. So based on the plan, any renovations in the 7-year capital plan would be funded via issuing general obligation bonds, and any increase in debt service was taken into account in our forecast and in the long-term projections. But there is no external source of funding identified outside of the issuance of general obligation bonds and us taking on additional debt service, but that's factored into the projections.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Joseph.
I did have one question that I didn't ask. What day was it? Yeah, Monday. According to the plan, we would still have some pretty small schools, a couple of small schools. Would we be able to provide for students at those schools the sort of universe of opportunities that we expect to be able to provide all students?
So when the new curriculum and offering changes go into effect in 27-28, the budgeting allocation model does allocate for all students to have the offerings that are outlined. So I know in the cases of small schools previously, the allocation model probably just looked at the number of total staff needed and not differentiating by the different specific opportunities that are needed. So if you have a small school and based on the number of foreign language, world language teachers you would need, maybe sometimes it would be a 0.3 of an FTE, and that's not practical, but based on this model, we will allocate the necessary FTE for the students to have the offerings that are outlined in the new scheduling model.
Thank you.
Director Silk?
So my question is really more for my board colleagues that I'm wondering about what is possible and available to us procedurally. I know that we are not voting in this meeting. This is for questions and discussion. I could use some help and clarity around running scenarios for next week, because I have real concerns if we end up not being able to pass this resolution, and then there's also, if it is no and no action, that is a real concern that I have. And my understanding is that there are procedural options for us in that space.
I'll tackle part of it, and then I may have to tag in our counsel to fill in some of that. So I think there are a couple of options. I mean, the first is obviously, and we've used this before, there is an option to table the resolution for a future date that would require a motion and a second and then a majority affirmative to table it. So that is one option. The other option is to vote. Now, obviously, if it passes, then there's nothing else to do. If it fails, then it can only be brought back at a future meeting by a director who voted negative on that resolution. So that is our other option. I don't know what other options you might be thinking about, but those are kind of the procedural vote options. Did I miss anything, Ira or Ms. Sherry?
No, you haven't. I would add that because of the unusual circumstance of new board members coming on to the board who did not vote either way on this, it is possible for one of them to bring it up, just as it would be possible for someone to bring it up who did not attend. We've had that happen in the past. But your general comment about within the present membership of the board, if it is voted down, the only person who could move to have it reconsidered would be someone who voted no on it. But again, with this new board, it raises some other scenarios for those members.
Thank you for that. So one piece in particular, and I know that I named a number of parts in the plan on Monday that, based on public comment, it was my understanding that a majority of directors support and agree with. I guess maybe this is my next question. So one thing that I'm thinking about is, or one thing that's on my mind is that there are aspects of this work that are in the plan that don't actually require a board vote that Dr. Walters and his team could proceed with. I'm thinking about what are pieces that if we do not pass this, that we are making it yet harder to move forward if we ultimately want to move forward with some of these ideas. The one example that comes to mind is sunsetting the elementary school magnet program. So in this scenario, if we are a no, or we pull the item from the agenda, or there's a motion to table the item, and we let things roll and don't change anything about the magnet application process, it seems to me like low-hanging fruit to move in a direction of not accepting new students, as an example. And I'm wondering, so I guess my first question is, does sunsetting the elementary school magnet program require a board vote? Or is that within the purview of the superintendent?
That might be for you, Ira. I don't know the answer to that.
It requires a board vote. The board votes on new programs, they vote on curriculum, they vote on courses of study, they vote on grade configurations. That's all within the purview of Section 508, which is the section that provides which items require a majority of the board to vote in the affirmative.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Director Silk. Yeah, I think what's challenging about this work in particular is much of it is interconnected with the other pieces. And so to pull one, it's kind of like Jenga, right? You pull one piece, the whole thing could fall apart. It's not necessarily a thing with the game, but in this instance, moving one piece does impact several other pieces, and it does make it a little bit harder if we are trying to kind of pick. I think the other kind of issue that it arises for me is, like, if we pick at one thing, where do we stop picking, right? And then it just becomes a stampede of folks kind of pulling it apart, and then we end up with nothing.
To reiterate the way that I'm thinking about it is order of operations, and one decision point, and this is me sitting here from absorbing and trying to take in as many of these reports as possible.
Sure.
Is that this team needs to say something about magnet schools, right? Like, that is a process that many people are waiting on. And so I'm not suggesting this one item and only this one item. I'm looking at it as if it seems like there is support, and if there is a way to get started, and we disagree, and that is okay. I do think that there are pieces of this that we can approve in sequence, which I think is different than picking it apart. And I was strategically selecting the elementary school magnet program because of the information that our families need and direction that the staff needs.
Understood. Before we leave, I do want to, and we'll do this again next week as well, I do want to provide space for either Student Director Trumbull or Student Director Graves to chime in with anything that is on their mind, because I see that they're both online. So if either of you or both of you would like to comment, or please do so.
I have no current comments at this time.
Yeah, good evening. We were planning to update you all about what's going on within the schools, what we're seeing in our next meeting.
Excellent. Well, we'll look forward to that. Thank you. I think that's it. What's that? Oh, yeah, Director Reed.
Never mind.
That was quick. Well, then, I think that ends this meeting. Just a reminder, we have public hearing on Monday, and due to the holiday, our legislative meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday. And next Tuesday, we will also be bidding farewell to Director Wilson, Director Udine, and Director Petrosky, as this will be their last meeting with us after a lot of time working on this board. And so we will save our emotional points for next week, but we look forward to seeing you all in just a few days, and have a good night. This meeting is adjourned, and be safe if you are driving.